8:20, 8:25 p.m., December the 23rd, 2015 is when my mom took her last breath. I don't know, that moment was weird for me because it's like we've been, for a little over a year, we knew that she had A.L.S. And so we knew that this was going to happen sooner or later. We knew that this was going to happen. And especially the last 3 weeks, we knew that she was in the dying process and that she wasn't going to last much longer. We knew that this was going to happen. It was just a matter of when. And so when it finally did happen, I really don't know how to explain how I felt. I had been mourning Mom since she stopped talking. I know that she was still there. Her eyes were open for a little while longer. She was still warm. And so she was still there. But, you know, I was still mourning her. I had been dealing with this for a few weeks. And so it's like I had already lost her. You know, a few days earlier, a week earlier, I had already lost her. And so when her heart finally stopped beating in that moment, that was it. My mom was gone. She was actually gone. And it was a weird feeling. I mean, like I said, she had been heavily sedated for a few weeks. So it was like she was already gone. But then just that final, you know, her heart has stopped beating. She really is gone. It was such a weird feeling. Immediately Dad wanted to call family and certain people that Mom wanted him to make sure that he called. Luke immediately wanted Mike to pray. So, you know, Dad put down his phone and Mike started to pray. That was the first time that I saw my dad cry. Now, I've seen my dad get teary-eyed, but I've never seen him cry like that. We were both still holding my mom's hand. We hadn't let go, but I took my other hand and I reached over and I grabbed my dad's hand and squeezed it. And then right after Mike got done praying, I went over there and I gave my dad a hug. Because it was just him and I now. I just remember after that, Mike, you know, stayed for a little while longer, and I took off her oxygen because she was still wearing her oxygen. And Dad started making phone calls, and you know, that's just something I think he felt like he had to do right away. And I understand that. And so he made a few phone calls, and it was on Facebook before we knew it. So Mike's the one that told them that we were ready for them to call the mortuary. And right after they called, I think the hospice nurse was actually there, and she said that she was the one that called and that they were going to be here within 30 minutes. And so Mike went ahead and he went home. I remember I sat there for quite a while looking at Mom and rubbing her hand and rubbing her leg, that one foot. I kept massaging that one foot that she kept bugging about. And I noticed that her body was starting to get cold to match her hands. And so I decided that I didn't want the mortuary to come into the room looking as messy as it was. And so I remember I was fluffing up pillows, I was folding blankets, I was picking up, you know, this and that, and just making it look a little nicer. Because we, you know, had practically been living there for 3 weeks. We were all living there. So, you know, we picked up and cleaned up as we went, but it was messy at that moment, and I just didn't want them to walk in on that. And so I was cleaning up when the door opened, and the guy walked in, and I just remember rushing to Mom's side when I saw him walk in, because I knew that this was the last time I was going to see my mom. I just wasn't ready for them to take her away. As silly as that sounds, but I just didn't want them to take that away from me. But I knew I had to, so I remember rushing to Mom's side again and holding her hand and just looking at her and stroking her hair. I even brushed her hair out before they got there. I think I even put lotion on her hands, I don't know. I remember covering her up with a blanket. I remember when I got there, actually, she had a very light, silky blanket on. It was actually a scarf. And so I took that off because her hands were so cold. I thought she may have been cold. And so I put a bigger blanket, a big, thicker blanket on her. And so she had that on when she passed away. Yeah, I claimed a lot of stuff from that room. The nightgown that we took off of her, that Sharon and I took off of her a few days ago, I took that, and I took all her pillows that she had on her. And so I have taken those, and plus, you know, pink and purple, they're my colors anyway. And so I took a lot of stuff that night even. I took the blanket that I put on her, and I took her socks off because I bought her those socks. Yeah, this whole house is full of her stuff right now that I need to go through and figure stuff out. She was wearing these necklaces. She was wearing this, which is an angel. It says angels are watching over me. And then she was wearing this. These are her rings. She has her wedding rings, her engagement rings, and her Mother's Day ring that we got her for Mother's Day one year. All of our birthstones are on this ring. And so, yeah, I took them off of her immediately because I didn't want, you know, them to take her with this. So I took them off immediately, and I have been wearing it ever since. I know people probably think that's a little creepy, but I don't care. These are my mom's necklaces, and I love them. So eventually, of course, we did have to leave, and they did end up having to take her away. We didn't see them touch her. In fact, I'm not even sure if I wanted to see them lift her up and, you know, take her away and zip the bag up. I don't think I wanted to see that. Mom even told us to make sure that they don't put a blanket over her face after she dies, because she had seen people do that before and she didn't want that. And those were her two requests when she had passed away. Don't cover her feet, cover her head. And that's what we did. We didn't cover her feet and we didn't cover her head. So when we finally left, I was crying hysterically. I didn't want to leave. It was freezing cold. It was actually kind of snowing outside. And I remember hugging Dad and telling him that if he felt like he needed to come over in the middle of the night, I don't care if it was 3 o'clock, call me, come over. I didn't want him to feel alone. And I didn't want him to feel like there was nobody here for him. And so, now he had been living alone for, you know, a year and a half at that point. And so he was already used to living alone. But, you know, now his wife is officially gone. I didn't want him to feel like he didn't have anywhere to go. So he said he would, and that he thinks he would be okay. And so Luke and I went home, and Kathy, my mother-in-law, she was with Natalie at the house, and this was around 11:30, close to midnight, and I knew that Natalie had already, you know, been in bed, but I was hoping that she would be awake so that I could see her. And sure enough, when we walked in, she had woken up just a few minutes earlier, and Kathy said that she could not get her back to sleep. And I'm like, this is why, because I need her. I need to see her. You know, Natalie has been my saving grace. And she was my therapy that night, just seeing her laugh, seeing her smile, and just holding her and squeezing her tight. I needed that. And so the next day was Christmas Eve. That day was really hard. It was really hard. Dad came over around noonish, I think it was, maybe a little bit before noon, and because because he said he didn't want to be alone on Christmas Eve. And I told him I didn't want him to be alone on Christmas Eve, so come over. So he came over, and we had some really generous people from church already passing, giving us food. And so we had that. Dad had been receiving a lot of sympathy notes through Facebook, and so Dad was responding to each one of them most of the day. There was one where I don't think he would mind me telling this, he was, I think, telling his sister this through text message. He was writing down something like, I don't know what all he said, but I know he ended it by saying, I feel like I was the luckiest man alive because I was blessed enough to have been married to the most beautiful woman in the world. And Dad just broke down. He broke down crying. And he just kept saying, that's true. It's true. Again, that was the second time I saw him cry. And I just, hugged him, and I started crying, and yeah, it was a really weird day. I was on the urge of crying all day long that day. It was just the fact that, honestly, I think I would have been okay if Dad was not there. It was the fact that Dad was there because, you see Dad, you see Mom. You see Mom, you see Dad. That's just the way most kids, I think, see it. And it was just really weird having Dad there on Christmas Eve and Mom not being there. And so I was just on the urge of crying all day long just because of that. Later on that evening, we ended up going to Luke's parents' house, Rick and Kathy, because they invited us. They had a meal. And so when we got there, I don't know what set me off. I think Dad and I were just talking about how Sharon and Steven were going to come down on Monday, and after the Christmas holidays were over with, and we were going to, settle things, meet at the mortuary, and just talk about things. And I don't know, just something inside of me just was creeping up, and I just could not hold it together. And I kept telling them, I don't want to be here right now. I just don't want to be here right now. And Luke's like, do you want to just be alone right now? And I'm like, yes, I want to be alone. So he took me upstairs to one of their bedrooms, and I just shut the door, crawled into one of the beds, and I cried. And I cried, and I cried, and I cried. It was just the strangest feeling. My mom is not here anymore. It's just not right. It can't be real. This can't be really happening. That's what I kept thinking over and over and over again. But it was happening. It was real. And Mom is just an angel. After that good cry, I thought I was finally ready to go be around people. But once I got downstairs, it was still there. Just someone had to look at me wrong and it was going to come out again. And so we decided just to go ahead and leave after that. And they were already done eating anyway. I didn't eat. I couldn't eat. After that, we went through Lemons Park. And Lemons Park has a Christmas display of Christmas lights. So we went around there, and I was in the back seat. It was dark, and so it all came up again, and no one heard me. I was able to be quiet about it, but I was still bawling my head off back there, just knowing that Mom would love to see these Christmas lights, and that she didn't get to this year. She never had the chance to see the Christmas lights this year. And it was just devastating. That whole entire day was devastating. I could not keep it together. I think I was okay the rest of the evening. The rest of the evening I was okay. I was fine. I was happy. I was in a good mood. It was still there, but I was able to keep it together. And then Christmas Day came. I was very scared about Christmas Day. I just wasn't sure what was going to happen, if I was going to be able to hold together, because I knew we were going to go to Rick and Kathy's house again, and we were going to have a little Christmas dinner, and we're going to open up some presents, and then maybe play a game. And I was just really hoping that I could keep it together. And I did. I was able to keep it together. I did not have one breakdown the entire day. In fact, it was actually really fun. We played a game and Dad was with us again, and we all laughed and we thought about Mom all day. We talked about her all day. She was still with us. You know, sometimes I feel guilty when I don't have a breakdown. And that day I was feeling a little guilty. I'm like, does this mean I'm not feeling the way I should feel? Does this mean I don't really love Mom the way I should love Mom? And of course it doesn't. You know, you can't have a horrible day every day. You have to have some good days. And so that's the way it was. That day was a good day. But we still missed her like crazy. So we had a really good day that day. We had a good dinner, we opened presents, Natalie got a few things, and it was so much fun. And we played a game afterwards, and of course the whole entire time we were thinking of Mom. We were talking about her and how much fun she would be having and how much she would be enjoying herself if she were here. I knew that I couldn't let the night end without taking some pictures, and so I had my mother-in-law take a picture of Luke and I with Natalie, and then take another picture of Luke and I, Natalie, and Dad. And Dad was holding Natalie, and Natalie was in this psycho mood, laughing hysterically because she was so tired. She was overly tired, and you know when you get overly tired, you get hysterical. That's the way she was at that time, and it was hilarious. And so she was laughing like crazy, and we got some really cute pictures of her smiling. But it was really special. It was a really special moment to take some pictures with my dad. It was a special memory. I would love to have had Mom there. Thinking back a year, before, Natalie was just born. Natalie was only 3 days old at this time last year. And so we took several pictures of Mom holding Natalie in front of the Christmas tree, and then Dad holding Natalie in front of the Christmas tree. And of course Mom was in a wheelchair at that time because she had just gotten diagnosed. Those are just good memories. Good memories to have. So after that, Dad went home, and we ended the night with a really good attitude. We kept Mom's spirit alive the whole entire day, and we kept her memory there with us. But I was really happy that I was able to have fun that day and create those good memories. Even though it was extremely hard not having her there, it was still good to just keep her memory alive that night. So Dad went home, and he took Saturday, the day after Christmas, to just be by himself at home. I called him up, of course, to make sure he was doing okay, but it was really good for him to be alone, and then for me to be alone with, my new normal, I guess. That's the thing, we had to come up with our new normal, and we had to figure out what our new normal was, and I'm still trying to figure that out.